Hi, everyone. My name is Penny Smallacombe. I'm currently the Grow Creative Manager at Netflix. Also a co-producer on the TV series True Colours, which we're going to have a little chat about today. This is, of course, the annual NAIDOC conversation. And very, very happy and excited to be chatting with Erica Glynn, a longtime friend and collaborator. And also I do want to acknowledge that I'm here in Sydney on Gadigal country, and it's really fantastic to be having this conversation during NAIDOC week. But I also want to say one quick small thing, and it's very important to acknowledge that it's great that we have these conversations during NAIDOC week, but we can chat about blackfella issues and blackfella stories, and we can screen them 365 days of the year. Doesn't need to just happen during NAIDOC week. So, and I'm going to throw to Erica Glynn to just say hello and do a quick introduction. How are you, Erica, and where are you?
Up in North Queensland on my mother's property, and running a little bit, feeling a little bit frazzled. I've been doing a lot today, so anyway, I'm happy to be having this conversation. I'm very glad to be asked to talk to everyone at NAIDA. There's a lot going on in my life at the moment. Obviously, True Colours is sort of halfway through being broadcast, and there's a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And I do want to remind everyone, and we'll keep coming back to it, but True Colours was funded, supported by SBS and NITV, Screen Australia's Indigenous Department, Screen NT, Screen New South Wales. Lots of fantastic partners on this, and it is currently running on NITV. It kicked off on Monday night at 8:30. Last night at 8:30, and 2 more nights for EPs 2 and 3 will also be available on SBS On Demand. But Erica, let's kick into this. This is a conversation about the fabulousness that is you. And it's always good to go way back to the beginning, I think, at these kind of things. But, tell us a little bit about growing up in Alice Springs. And, we've spoken about it before, but I always love hearing about when you were bitten by the filmmaking bug and how did that come about?
Yeah, so I grew up in the mid to late 60s in Alice in the early 70s. We didn't have television, and my whole screen life revolved around the drive-in theatre or the walk-in theatre, of which my mother was an avid fan, and we could find our whole family at either of those places watching movies 3 or 4 nights a week. The only nights we didn't do were the porn nights, actually. And when TV first came to Central Australia, it came later than it did in the rest of the country. My brothers and sisters and I were just addicted, even to the point where one of my younger brothers would sit and watch the test pattern, waiting for, Adventure Island and Play School and stuff to come on. But it was a time when we weren't seeing dark faces on screen in this country. It was a rare occurrence. There was the one time when Kamal ended up playing an Aborigine in some detective role or something. I can't even remember. We were just all like, what the hell is that? And it was a time when there wasn't any voice actually for Aboriginal people. It was just nil. And I can't say that I grew up with a driving ambition to want to be, a filmmaker or a, Indigenous communicator at that stage. That came much later in my life and was probably more driven by my mum and her desire to kind of get black voices in black languages on radio. On radio stations. So she and a bloke called Philip Batty and John McCumber were behind setting up Karma, a community radio station initially, that then broadened out into having its own video unit, making videotapes and stuff in 5 or 6 different languages, often sort of infotainment stuff, or just rock clips or music clips or traditional singing, or, you know, that type of thing. And then that in turn broadened out to Imparja television, so having regular programming on that, and that sort of was more, I was more involved in making a whole bunch of docos or representing my people languages and stuff like that. Yeah. So,
and just thinking, you know, along those lines, I remember from your documentary, She Who Must Be Loved, your mother referred to the karma pan in terms of, you know, the long kind of shot, the pan shot across country, and having, you know, our wonderful elders, uncles talking, you know, about country and all those excellent kind of stories. I mean, from that and those early kind of stories, can you talk a little bit about how your career evolved and kind of progressed into documentary making from that early time in Karma?
Yeah. So once we got Imparja, we invented this program, half hour, once a week, called Nanapara Nunakana, which it translates in various languages to ours. And it was a program especially designed to have our content, our cultural content, go on a commercial TV station. So it was about putting our culture on screen. And look, honest to God, there was, you know, like 50 different ways to cook and kill and cook a kangaroo, because there are different rules for tribal groups that, you know, the lot of traditional singing and dancing and that type of thing. And it was an amazing, I consider it a real privilege to have been involved in making that, you know, working with my mob to make that content. Everything was in language. The whole lot was in language. And I learned right from the early days that what's involved, the art and craft that is involved in subtitling and getting a message from one language to another. And that's always stuck with me, and I feel very passionate about making sure that continues into other realms. Also, part of what we did at Karma was a thing called Autopia, and that talked about more contemporary kind of issues, or it wasn't quite current affairs, but it was infotainment, for want of a better expression. And we talk, you know, we showcase sports carnivals and, you know, the latest hairdressing venture by somebody in the country, you know, all kinds of things. But I began to feel like all of that was very limited in with what we could talk about, you know, like we had huge cultural change happening at the time, and we had talking about them in a realist kind of way was difficult often, because you know, our mob it was a sensitive time of change. So I thought that it might be a good idea to go to film school and learn to try and find a way to make stories in a dramatic sense, in a fictional sense, and so that's what I did. My little brother, Warwick Thornton, had gone before me, and I thought if he could do it, I could do it. But I didn't have the courage to do it before that. And I went off to film school, did drama directing, had a ball for 3 years playing around with every actor in the nation, just about. Like, you know, they all give their time so amazingly to film school students. And, came out of afters with a whole bunch of knowledge and went back to doco making.
You know, that's a funny thing. I did that as well, actually, when I went to film school. I kind of had these bigger global ambitions and was making little short message sticks on the ABC, went to film school and kind of came out and went back to doing the same thing. And I don't think, you know, and doing it in a different way and thinking about craft in a different way as kind of building blocks. But, you know, going from that and coming back out and making those docos, when did you really kick into gear, and how did you get going on the short dramas? Because, you know, My Bed Your Bed is, still considered a brilliant, I think, one of the best shorts. Out of the group of shorts, it was one that travelled extensively globally. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And also, what do you think the ingredients in that, and why was it so successful?
Look, yeah, so look, actually, My Bed, Your Bed, I actually made while I was at film school, which was, not the done thing. You weren't able to, as a student there, you weren't able to be funded for stuff outside of your student work, but somehow we did it. I don't know how it happened. And like at the time, I know I was feeling a sense of, like, as a student, I was feeling a sense of like, I'm not expressing myself here in a dramatic way. As a directing student, we weren't allowed to write content. We weren't allowed to write our films. We had to go to the writing students to do that, so we could learn how to collaborate, and while I kind of really enjoyed that, the subjects, and I learned so much from it, but the subjects weren't often the subjects that I wanted to talk about. I was really hankering to tell my people's stories and, explore all the stuff that we needed to explore, because, at the time there was still not much around. And so happily, AFC in the day, Australian Film Commission, now Screen Australia, had an initiative partway through my time at film school called Santa Celluloid, where they commissioned a bunch of interesting black people to try and make short films. And they'd had one series before, which was an amazing success. Richard Franklin's film had gone to Cannes under that. Warwick had done very well. He went to Telluride. That was his first short film. So I, made a short film with Ivan Sen, made one in this collection. A bunch of real sort of landmark shorts, actually, that did a whole lot of work to prove that blackfellas could actually make drama, And so, yeah, I'd been training to do this at AFTRS, and so this was my opportunity, and I grabbed it and did it and had a ball, and yeah, was never going to stop doing it. But like I said, when I came out of AFTRS, I was so poor I had to get jobs, and climbing that ladder through drama is a difficult thing, and not one that I could do immediately. So I had to sort of just pause a bit and go back to doco making, and yeah.
But I mean, I've always found that because doco was my kind of first passion, and probably is still. But I love drama, of course. But I do find I watch more docos these days. It's a passion. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old. Who knows? But I think coming from a doco background puts you in really good stead for making drama. I'm not sure if you feel the same way. Being able to think on your feet in the changing ways that docos happen. If you're not doing a scripted doco, if you're doing an ob doc, it can completely change from the treatment that you've written. Do you think that your doco background has really helped and accentuated your drama storytelling?
Absolutely, 100%. It is, the stories spring from the docos. That's the biggest thing for me. You are so involved in people's lives so intimately that you get to know human beings through documentary making in a way that you would never get to know them in any other circumstance, unless you're a shrink or a psychologist or a prison guard or something. Like, you just get to know people's lives and stories and how different humans operate. You get to observe it, you get to be intimately involved in it, and then from there stories spring, and stories about complex situations and complex emotional issues, or not, really bloody funny stuff, spring from documentary. I mean, the other thing I would say is that I never felt depleted because I was making documentary. It's more because it's all storytelling to me, and I love it both. The only difference for me is that one gives you a better pay packet than the other.
And one, you get to play with more money as well, really, doesn't it? Yeah, it's so true. And it's a funny thing. I mean, I think I've been similar to you in some ways, that we kind of traverse a world where you get to be a creator and then you get to be a facilitator of other people's creativity, which I'm sure you did at Karma. And then you went on to work at the AFC's Indigenous Department, and then what became Screen Australia's Indigenous Department. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that work? And you were there for quite some time. You know, what was the black wave, and what were those trends that you saw during that period of time in a funding agency?
Yeah, this is a good story. You know, back to the money issue. Like, I'm a mother of 4 children and single mother, and they're all grown up now. But back in those days, I, was really struggling to be an independent filmmaker. So the reality hit, and Sally Riley, who's now head of drama at ABC, saw a little opportunity there and snaffled me and said, just do it for 3 months. Well, cut to 11 years later, I was still bloody there. She'd gone and dumped me with the job. But yeah, look, we worked together for 10 years or 9 or 10 years, developing and helping our storytellers, our screen storytellers, make the next steps in their careers. So it started off with those little 10-minute dramas. It went, and then shorter documentaries, the NIDF fund, which didn't originate out of AFC, but became something that they kind of looked after and funded. So we were growing new filmmakers, giving people opportunities to have a crack in a small way at screen storytelling, either in documentary or in drama. And we saw through some of the, the leading bright lights like Warwick, from the Wayne Blair, from their short films all the way through to their bigger careers. So there were short film initiatives, a number of those, half-hour initiatives, graduated to 50-minute in the days when you could do 50-minute dramas on TV, then graduated through to an initiative we called Long Black, which was getting people from their short dramatic ideas to their feature films. And that's where stories like Samson and Delilah, it came out of that process, And so we've set up and supported some of the shining lights of black cinema, black screen. Yeah.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And I mean, I certainly have always been thankful for the special initiative that I came in on, the Producers Initiative, as well. So it's, not only those still making content, but also, Kelrick Martin, who's commissioning, myself at Netflix. We've all done something within. We've all been supported, through that time.
Yeah, I think that's an important one to mention, because not only were we creating directors and writers, which we did initially, we worked really hard, like you say, to get Indigenous producers moving through the system. And yes, again, that was very successful, and a lot of people who came through those initiatives are still working in the industry today and still have very key positions, if they're not making their own stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is good that people remember, and students remember, there's so many jobs and opportunities within the screen-telling industry, and if you don't always get to tell the stories that you want to tell, or write and direct, or there's so many other avenues as well to still be in the storytelling space.
Yeah, I have to say that working at Screen Australia, or AFC Screen Australia, with Sally Riley, with the other staff that were there, including you, towards the end there, is probably one of my proudest achievements, like we got to see through people from their earliest stages of inspiration for screen through to their, like their big time money making, stuff, and that, guiding people through that, or supporting them through that, because we weren't coming up with the ideas or whatever, we were just finding avenues for them to get a gig, being tough against everybody else who wanted the money and saying, no, this is for us, you know. And, you know, like, it's really, I can sit back now and go, I'm very, very proud of that. I'm very proud to have walked alongside Sally Riley. I'm very proud to have worked alongside you, Jill Moody, Nicole Stevens, you know, because we created something. We created something very, very important for this nation. And, you know, I'd even go as far as saying that we created such a sexy bloody screen culture for the nation that everybody now wants to tell the stories that that we've always wanted to tell. Everyone wants a piece of the pie now, and I suppose in some ways that's a good thing, in some ways it's not, you know. Anyway, you know, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the work that we did there and deeply satisfied.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% in agreement. I think that the 7 years that I spent at Screen Australia is, you know, some of the most fantastic work. And it's seeing, you know, the young emerging, not even young, but just emerging filmmaker blossom and move across and then kind of find their own path is always, you know, it is rewarding and super exciting. But then you left Screen Australia and you went out into the documentary making film world and started also developing drama. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like to kind of, after 11 years, to bounce back out there into the freelance world? Because it isn't easy. It's one of the hardest things to do is freelancing. And I mean, how do you sustain yourself with just the development and the development process and getting things up and flourishing?
I don't know, Penny. I'm still struggling with that. But look, I was extremely naive, and if a brighter person than myself, or a less sort of rose-coloured glasses person than myself, would have known that that was the stupidest move anybody could make. I've just embraced the life of poverty, really. You know, so I was going to, you kind of know what my dreams and ambitions were, but I was going to, for the rest of you, I was going to bounce out of Screen Australia, write this amazing feature film, you know, head off to, you know, Hollywood, and not really, but, you know, but I'll be in Cannes, certainly, you know, straight away, and blah, 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 blah. Well, of course, none of that happened. I had to return back to doco making to actually, you know, put the food on the table, blah, blah. But again, look, I had a ball, and I made some of the most interesting work that I've done. Like, you know, I made a film about Indigenous adult illiteracy, which had a reasonable impact on the country and raised a whole bunch of issues that not everybody knew about. And I'm really proud of that film. I've made really great friends in the community of Brewarrina. I don't ring them enough, but, you know, like that's a lifelong thing that is mine forever with them, you know. So I'm proud about that, and it had an impact on the country. Like, people went, oh my goodness, what? You know, 60% of Indigenous adults are functionally illiterate. I also had the opportunity to make a film about my mother, who was, as many of you probably know, the creator of this thing called Karma, Aboriginal Community Media Association in Alice, and had a roller coaster ride there. But it was a documentary that got a lot of recognition, won a few prizes, and again, I was not angsting over not making drama. You know, I had a number of projects bubbling along that I felt like I needed to spend more time on, but I was not angsting that it wasn't drama. You know, I just knew it would come in its right time, and I was right.
And it did, and it took a long time. I remember the first story room for True Colours, which wasn't called True Colours back then, for Copying It Black. And you, Stephen, Danielle, and Warren kind of was coming in and out. We're in Alice Springs. It was a super tight, low budget story room. I'd just taken over the job and I popped in. Tell us a little bit about where the idea came from and how this evolved, and also how long it has taken to get where we are, where it's actually been broadcast.
Yeah, okay. So during my time at Screen Australia, Warren Williams and Nick Lee, from Karma, pitched had a little bit of an idea. Warren had an idea about a whodunit, and he knew who had done it. I'm not I didn't imagine I would ever be making crime. Crime is not somewhere I would intuitively go to. It's just not, I didn't think it was my thing. While I was at Screen Australia, we kept on having bits of meetings, and I kept on trying to partner them with people that might be able to help them, and it just never quite happened. So when I left Screen Australia and I was twiddling my thumbs, I thought I'll just go up and see back home to Alice and see where this is at. And they said, well, nowhere. And I said, well, let's kick it into gear. Let's get this moving, because actually I think there are elements to what Warren was talking about that we could really play with in terms of the cultural aspects. And also, probably more attractive than that was the idea that Warren Williams thought he might like to explore performing. And I went, well, bingo, he's got it going on. And, he's not a trained performer, but I know that his intuition is very good. And I just sensed it, and I'd seen him stand up and do a talk at the Mbantua Festival that was on a few years previously, and he just stood there so beautifully and told his grandmother's and mother's story, and he was in his body, and he was very, very comfortable and firm with what he was saying. And I went, there's an actor, there is somebody who I know will make a fine performer on screen. And so with those two notions, that we could explore cultural life and that we had this very handy, well-known person that could be a lead actor in it, we started from that place and off we went. And Stephen McGregor, one of the other writers on the series, he had written a number of sort of crime whodunits, Mystery Road, etc. Before, but Danielle and I had no experience in writing crime, so we just kind of tried to figure out the basic outlines for what this series might be, and we didn't know if it was 4 1 hours or 6 1 hours or whatever. We just tried to get to the guts of what it was, and it turns out we did. It turns out we did get to the guts of what it was, and where it would be set, and that it would involve a fictional language speaking community. And if Warren was going to be in it, then it would naturally be Aranda language, because there are many languages in Central Australia. So yeah, that kickstarted it. And then it needed a very, very special production company to be able to do that. And there are a few probably in the country that could handle it, but Bunya in particular, David Jowsey had a history in Central Australia and had a very good, it's a complex community, has a certain way of working, and he understood it very well because he'd worked at Karma. And with him and wonderful Greer's tenaciousness, I knew we had a team that would just grab hold of it in the way that we needed it to be grabbed hold of, and go with it. In the meantime, they had a whole bunch of other stuff on their slate. They had to make Mystery Road 1, 2, and nearly 3. And so we had to wait a while, and we were just walking along, riding, and figuring it out until that day. And once it was backed by NITV and SBS, It moved very, very fast.
It did. I remember sort of, you know, Amanda Duthie had kind of done the jump from Adelaide Film Festival, arrived in at SBS, and was kind of floating around at that time. But as soon as Amanda saw it, she kind of leapt on it, which was just amazing. And she'd always been a big supporter of, I think, your work and all the kind of First Nations work.
Yeah.
And, you know, and particularly coming out of Central Australia. So I think, you know, a bit of timing and a bit of luck, as well as, you know, excellent development time. What are some of the obstacles? Sorry.
So, sorry to jump over you like that. You know, one of the big things I appreciate about like what NITV and SBS did was that they saw in it something that was unique, and they backed it, you know, because this is not the type of thing that you would normally take to a broadcaster or a streamer and go, here we go, we've got all these amazing stars. They're all going to speak Harunda and they've never acted before, you know, like it wasn't one of those deals. And to their credit, they went, okay, let's take this to the next step. Let's take this to the next step. Let's take this to the next step, because it was a very piecemeal thing over many, many years. So like Warren and I, Warren actually worked out a couple of weeks ago, it was actually nearly 10 years in the making, this 4-part 1 hour thing, which is a long time. But, you know, we did have to kind of step very gently through it and handhold and secure people. And to their credit, they did it, you know, and yeah.
And also even with Warren, you know, H. Williams, for those that don't know, he's a, you know, country music star. Even I remember in the story rooms, you know, just discussions around, you know, what we could show and what we could do. And there was always an excellent process of Warren having to go back to community to get permissions, and then coming back and saying, no, sorry, we can't look at that. We can't show that. Or yes, we can do that. And that was the process in itself, really, wasn't it?
Exactly. And, you know, like the other extreme to that was sort of like him offering up sort of storylines around cultural stuff that I would never touch with a 10-foot pole. Stephen and Danielle would probably like steer right away from, because we're not as culturally involved as, you know, the story is. And so that's the sort of stuff we sort of step away from. And with his encouragement and with his pushing of us in a very, very gentle way, he got us to push some of the storylines to places we would never have touched. Yeah.
And with that in mind, you know, kind of just sort of backtracking 1 second, you said that crime wasn't something they sort of naturally kind of would fall into, but you have. I mean, what were some of the obstacles, or what was some of the joy of discovering writing crime, you know?
Well, it takes for me, the obstacle is it takes a much more precise brain than I own to, you know, lay out the clues and not give them away, and then take the audience dramatically with you. You know, Stephen and Danielle have a much more precise brain than me. I'm way more random. So that, you know, there was that. But, you know, the surprise for me was just how much of some of the more cultural and social things you can embed within that formula, which is crime drama. You know, like I don't know why I didn't realise this before, that you can actually do a bloody lot, because now I'm sort of starting to really watch a lot of crime drama now. I'm at the end of it, and you know, you go, oh yeah, so you know, Vera does a whole bunch of stuff in rural, whatever, is it Northumberland? I don't even know, you know, and you know, you can bring so much cultural and social story to crime, and I just was too dumb to know that before, you know. So now it's something I really like. I just got to sharpen my brain around laying clues and
when the right red herring in the right place, and yeah, definitely writing something that starts backwards, you know, is kind of a strange journey in itself. But sort of rewinding now to only 12 months ago, this time 12 months ago, I do believe we were in production. And we had a bit of a hell kind of pre-production in terms of COVID, borders shutting, different actors. We had to recast actors out of pretty much every state, and then borders shut. They shut in New South Wales, they shut in Victoria, shut in South Australia.
It was a daily occurrence.
Sorry?
It was a daily occurrence. We'd cast out of Queensland, and then the borders would close, and we'd have to recast again from WA the next day. Like that. Remember, it was madness.
It was madness. It was crazy. I don't know how we didn't go crazy, but we got there.
You might have.
But, while all that was happening about getting crew into Central Australia, we had, well over 30 crew that had to come in and be quarantined and, do their 2 weeks in the Northern Territory. We couldn't get people into Darwin because the Olympic team was coming back. There was so much happening. But we also had beautiful stuff happening on the ground in Alice in terms of the casting. Do you want to talk a little bit about our locals casting? Because I think that's something that, Peter Lee, Tanith, yourself, Warren, Stephen, I think that in itself was absolutely amazing in terms of all of our First Nations cast that have never acted before.
Yeah. Well, everybody knows that, normally in these sort of filmmaking corners, you go get a casting agent and they find the people for you. And, it's, a walk in the park in comparison to what we had to do. But, that was never going to work on this one. Firstly, and obviously because part of the story was in Aranda. And, we could teach people to speak Aranda, but and we did do that with Radawoy Hick, but that process was probably not as good as trying to dig beneath the dirt and find those good local actors. So we employed my niece Tanith Glynn and her good friend Peter Lee Coleman-Niles, who are a dynamic duo that went out and went in search of all of these actors and just kept throwing people at us day after day. And I was absolutely astounded. When previous dramas, little dramas that I had made in Central Australia, My Bed, Your Bed and the like, you couldn't get a black fella in that town to act. It's a very rare thing to have anybody put their hand up and go, oh yeah, I'll give it a crack. Happily for us, people like Tricia Morton-Thomas and my brother Warwick have been working away in Central Australia, creating lots of work, and Aboriginal people from there have been seeing themselves represented on screen in a really big way, like, Sweet Country and Samson and Delilah and AMMM and, so that over the years people had built up a body of work that obviously made people feel like they could do it, and obviously made people feel like they want to have a crack at it, and obviously made people feel like maybe we could do this for a job, because we had no trouble finding anyone. Everybody was eager. It was competitive. We could have cast each role 3 or 4 times over. The amount of talent that was there and eagerness, we were literally turning people away. Those girls did such a fantastic job, and anyone who's watching Choose Colours will see that they nailed it. They went for it. All of those actors that have never acted before, had a little bit of time with a dramaturg, went out there, were hungry, and they did it. And they pulled it off. Like, they're great performances. I mean, I'm not just saying that from a wanky director point of view, but I'm saying people gave it everything they could. And not only that, they were sitting alongside like these top name actors, Luke and Miranda and Errol and stuff.
Radawoy's super experienced as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And they weren't standing right beside them, giving it as much as everybody else. It was just phenomenal.
Yeah, and it was a long shoot and it was a dusty shoot, and I always remember that we'd really hoped that it would be, you know, the cold Alice winter. I remember you were talking a lot about, you know, fires burning and, you know, people breathing and seeing all of that. And then, of course, climate change happens. And most of the shoot is, you know, we had a few cold days, but it was mostly pretty warm, wasn't it? And it kind of, you changed shape in its own, didn't it? The country kind of just said, no, this is, you know, it's going to look different to what you guys thought it was going to look in a way. Did you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, what do you do? What do you do? All those great plans of more early morning breaths and representing the desert, which is so often represented as a hot place in a very cold way, you know, like all those dreams, and that went down the drain. But what the universe gave us instead was lots of dust. We embraced that. Off we went, dust everywhere. And when it wasn't blowing dust, we were throwing dust to make it look dusty.
That's it. And excellent. I think it like really good, you know, for the NAIDOC students. We've got actors and we've also got people that are doing technical craft studies and stuff. And I mean, I think we just had an excellent crew and heads of department, didn't we? That all. Yeah. I mean, how did you find working with all these heads of department on a big scale production like this? You know, going from the shorts and the docos, which are so much more contained, to like, boom, you know, cast and crew of thousands. Wasn't that big, but felt that big. What are your thoughts?
I think, you know, like I was involved in choosing the heads of departments, and obviously the heads of departments were you know, brought their own people with them. But I think that we had such an excellent shoot that went so very smoothly is a real testament to you as producers, you, David, Greer and stuff, that the right people, that those heads of departments were encouraged to choose the right people to be in their departments who were going to embrace this being a slightly different shoot. And I just should really mention that the Amungana community is a living and breathing community that, you know, is alive, and we shot in that community, and they opened their arms to us, you know.
Their houses, their everything.
Yes, their houses, their everything, their dogs, their horses. They opened their hearts to the whole production, and they took on the crew and brought them in as family right from day one, and just everybody went off on this sounds corny, but a real loving journey. Like, people got to know each other. Cultures were, through the process of making the film, I mean, it sounds like a wank, but cultures were exchanged. The crew were speaking bits of Aranda, you know, they came in the morning and were going, Warda, you know, like, there was a very definite cultural exchange through the process of making the film. And each and every one of those crew members loved it, and they loved the experience. They were hungry for the experience, and people from Amungana felt appreciated and loved and were willing to give to it. And it was just, you know, it was such an excellent experience all around. I mean, I kept on kind of saying to people, well, it's never this easy usually. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it had something to do, Penny, with that wonderful first welcome to country smoking ceremony we had, where I cried. I mean, I've been to a lot of welcome to countries and a lot of smoking ceremonies, and perhaps this is because it was very close to home, and, you know, like, it's not my country, but I'm very close to a lot of people and have cousins and stuff who live in that community and whose land that is. And it was such an amazing welcome to country that I burst out crying. I didn't know I was going to have a full-on religious experience like that. So, of course, I burst out crying. Everybody else bloody burst out crying. It was such a moving event, and it was made very, very clear that, you know, that the ancestors were open to us being there and were going to look after us if we did the right thing, you know. And so off we went.
Yeah, I thought it was really beautiful. I mean, I've been to many welcomings and many smokings as well, but I remember it was the first time I was really listening, and, you know, Teresa Alice was doing it at the time, and she explained it as it's such an important occupational health and safety. It's OH&S. You know, if you're going to film on country, on someone else's country, a part of the OHS is the smoking ceremony. And it's not just, you know, some people just think it's, you know, I do think some people just think it's light ceremonial, black cladding on something that kind of gives it a little bit of a shape of, you know, like semi-authenticity. But when she explained it and where we were and the amount of time we spent in the community and, you know, with the backing of those McDonald Rangers, Yaburinya, I knew it was always important, but it felt more deeply important than ever when we were out there, and the way that, you know, we were all going to be safe. And we did have, you know, stunts. There was a small injury. We had someone in our costume department that got really, really sick, and first AD, but everyone lived and everyone survived, and I'm pretty sure it was because of that smoking ceremony. More than convinced for it, definitely. And with the language, just quickly, I know we've got about 10 minutes left, but language, I really wanted to talk about language because it was from the very beginning of this show, when it was discussed that there would be language in it. And I think it was when we were in pre, and you probably knew and clocked it way before, but it really didn't hit me until then that we really haven't had an Australian television drama with a huge percentage of language just naturally spoken in the show before. And we spoke about that a lot. And I think that's one of the proudest things that I have coming off the back of this. Can you talk about how you feel about incorporating language, and is this going to be something new for the future?
Well, here we go. Let's hope so. I mean, I had an awful experience many moons ago as the head of the Indigenous department at Screen Australia, where I was told by leading broadcasters, head drama person, or one of them, that Snowflake's chance in hell of getting language on our Australian screen. So I had a bee in my bonnet about that. And I was never going to let that one go. And so looking for the opportunities, and obviously this one came up. And look, to their credit, I think, you know, broadcasters, commissioning editors and all that are beginning to see the qualities of the diverse Black voice. You know, they're beginning to understand that we are not all one voice. To their credit, they are looking around. I mean, SBS would not have taken this on if they weren't looking for something like that, or they were looking to, you know, find a way to give place to it. You know, it depends on how it goes. I think these things are, you know, are measured by ratings, yeah. And if we have done it the right way, and we can bring audiences that don't speak Aranda to a series like this, then I think we've done something, and then I think it will ease the path for other filmmakers from other language-speaking groups to be able to make stuff that is theirs and that they can share with the nation, or even beyond that, with the world, you know. And I think, you know, look, it's crying shame in some ways that it has taken this long, because I would have left film school and done something in language from the get-go, you know, 30 years ago, but it hasn't happened for various reasons. One of them because of people's ignorance and fear, absolute fear around having Aboriginal languages on screen when we're spending endless hours watching Scandinavian noir and, you know, like all of that. Like, audiences are so familiar with reading subtitles and what have you, but absolute fear in Australia around having Aboriginal languages on screen. Well, hopefully we've debunked that now. Hopefully we've got past that. Hopefully we've and you know, like, I reckon we might do it.
Yeah. I'm confident, and I think that, you know, when people tune in, it's not fear. I mean, the way that I think that our characters just effortlessly go in and out of English to Aranda, and also noting that, you know, we had Central Aranda, we had Eastern Aranda, we had Western Aranda, you know, so you know, we had a variety of actors that were Aranda that were speaking their dialect of Aranda. And it worked seamlessly, I think, you know.
Yeah, everyone could understand each other. There was also a Madara there, which is sort of north, and is an Arandic language. So, yeah, we have 4 different types of Aranda being conversed in one sentence sometimes. Yeah, and, you know, I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of that. I'm getting text from cousins late at night saying it's so amazing. You know, like they're all Arundels. All my cousins speak Arundel as a first language, not English. We're the only branch of our family that speak English as a first language. And they are going, oh, it is amazing. It's so good. I love, love, love it. You know, like they're sending hearts and communicating me in a way that I don't often get communicated with. They feel represented for the first time. It's so amazing.
And I mean, sort of looking forward, I'm just mindful of time. Looking forward, you know, I mean, because, you know, we have like, it's NAIDOC, we've got Mystery Road going out, we've got True Colours going out. I know that, you know, I've always got to do a little spike for Netflix now that I'm on the Netflix payroll, but, you know, Fabulous Nicole, you know, at Netflix ANZ, you know, it's got a back catalogue of older content. And they were able to do a highlight package in Australia and New Zealand, which has never been done before. I mean, everyone's doing it. I know Fetch TV, I know Apple TV, you name it. They're all like, you know, this is First Nations content. These are First Nations stories. I question how we define First Nations content sometimes, you know. Is it written and directed by First Nations? Does it need to be produced? Like, who knows? And I think that's stuff that we discuss all the time about the definition of First Nations content and what is First Nations storytelling. And the conversation's definitely worth having. But I mean, what do you see in terms of, you know, what is First Nations content, and what do you see in terms of the future of it when we've got the total controls and the you know, we've got the big shows, we've got the big features now. What is the future for us? What are you worried about? What are you excited about?
Oh, look, I'm still like, I mean, we've made great successes, and I love watching everything that all of my mob make. You know, I just love being in it and feel so grateful that, you know, I'm getting old now, close to retirement, that in my career and in my lifetime we have got this far and that we do have an impact on the nation. I guess if there's, you know, this has been an ongoing concern for me since my days back at Screen Australia, where, you know, I remember no one would touch Indigenous subjects with a 10-foot pole. They wouldn't go near them. You know, and we were told constantly that we would television's paint ratings poison and, you know, screen poison, blah, blah, blah. And we've had to go out and prove to everybody that actually we can bring an audience and that we can make stuff that people want to watch. I guess now that we've made it so sexy and so fabulous, and I don't know, some of my good Indigenous filmmaker friends kind of use the term we're a victim of our own success, because now everybody wants to tell our bloody stories, and it's like, yeah, that's right, yeah, that's good. It's good that you want to talk about, you know, black stuff. It's good that you want to create conversations that are about how we interact with each other as a nation. But there's something deep in my heart that, you know, it just never goes away, and that is that, you know, a lot has been stolen from us as a nation. We've had our land stolen, we've had our children stolen, in so many cases culture and language has been stolen. That's all having to be rebuilt piece by piece. A lot of work goes into that. And really, as a nation, what we've got are our stories. They are the things that we own. It was our dilemma that we need to discuss from our point of view. I'm hopeful that our nation moves to a place with good grace and goes, well, let those people tell their stories instead of wanting to tell them for us in a, what, you know, might be a more palatable way. I mean, there's a place for white fellas to talk about our stuff, but I think point of view has to be considered all the time, and I'm hopeful that our nation kind of goes, leave it to the black fellas to tell their stories themselves, because, you know, Penny, it's a business space too, eh?
It is. We always talk about marketplace as well, and I think people forget that, you know, when they get caught up. You know, it's funny, you know, I'll be on a panel and everywhere I'll sort of talk about, you know, importance of the politics of representation, the importance of authenticity and Indigenous voice. And I'll always walk out and there'll always be a non-Indigenous person that comes running up to me and says, you're going to hate me, but I really want to tell this Indigenous story. And I'm like, I just don't know what I spoke about for an hour that you think that I'm still interested in here. I mean, most of them are really good in terms of they're trying to find someone to collaborate with. Sometimes people are like, I can't find any collaborators. And it's like, well, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. No other First Nations people are wanting to jump on board, essentially, what is not your story to be told. And, you know, and I know that with us First Nations people, we're wanting to collaborate with each other, you know, and share in terms of telling that story. But people do forget, you know, what is marketplace. And when, you know, you tell, like Philip Noyce tells Rabbit-Proof Fence story, and I'm not knocking Philip Noyce because I actually really love him, and I really think Rabbit-Proof Fence is a fantastic film, but when you tell a story, you take the marketplace, and we've not seen another Stolen Generation story like that. And why? Because the marketplace, the sales agents, the distributors, and everyone, they're like, well, that story's been told. That's gone. You know, the world's seen the Stolen Gen story. And it takes years later before they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. That was 20, 30 years ago. Now we can tell another one from a different angle. And I think that people have to be really cognizant of that. And it's like stealing the story, taking the story, and taking the space for us in, you know, I mean, thankfully now we've got such a, you know, we've got so many streamers, we've got so many platforms in which to tell stories, but we still don't have all the money in the world to tell them. And we still are to some extent considered niche programming and niche storytelling. And so, you know, there's not a whole lot of space in the niche area. There is in global audiences, but not altogether. So, you know,
it's our job, isn't it, Penny, in the next 10 years? I mean, I won't get that far because I'm too bloody old and, you know, all of that fast. But the next generation
feature, you'll get the feature in the next series happening.
Oh, there's plenty to come from me, but not over the next 10 years. I reckon I'll be done before that. But, you know, like that's our job, you know, to take it from niche to mainstream, I think. And we can do that. We've done everything else. Why not? And, you know, all these beautiful NAIDOC students who are now, you know, about to graduate or will graduate over the next, you know, 3 or 4 years. We might be able to cast you now.
Or come and work on our shows if you're doing the technical studies. That is my little plug too, you know, with the boom that's happening in the Australian screen industry and all the streamers are here and everyone, we need more crew and we desperately need great crew. So forget the theatre world, come into screen. It's much better for all of us. But look, we've just only got 2 minutes left, Erica, and I just, you know, kind of coming back to where our gathering, it is NAIDOC week. Lots of different events happening this week. I mean, you know, what does NAIDOC week mean to you?
Well, it used to be something that we sort of celebrated on our own. I remember the early days in Alice Springs and NAIDOC, we would have to actually go to a Mungana hall to have our ball and stuff because no one in town would give us a place to have our events at. That's changed now. Now NAIDOC is about white fellas in the nations, or, you know, non-Aboriginal people in the nation coming to understand our culture and our plays. It's still a little bit tricky for filmmakers because filmmakers, the majority of our works are played in NAIDOC week. It's rare. It's very rare to see our work played outside of NAIDOC week. That's a bit of a bummer in the sense that, you know, everybody's there's too much, and we are. I don't know. I think cannibalizing is a word that you might use. Yeah.
It is. We are cannibalizing our audience to some extent by, you know, showcasing everything in a single week, which I question and I'm not sure. And I think that people can tune into, as I said, First Nation stories. I think people can tune into LGBTQIA plus stories outside of Pride Week. I think people can watch other multicultural stories outside of Harmony Day, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's great to market and it's great that there's a concentrated time. But look, another thing for us to do over the next 10 years is get our stuff screen beyond NAIDOC week. We got our work cut out for us, Penny.
We do. And we're at 5, but do you have like one final message for all the fabulous students of NIDA about this career that they're all going to leave theatre and come into screen now? So what would you say about coming into screen?
I am in awe of actors. I have no idea how they do what they do, how they transform themselves and give up a completely different human being to who they are in reality. So I don't know that I have any words of inspiration other than saying I am in awe of you. Keep doing what you're doing, because people like me would be lost without you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Erica. This was a great chat. And thank you, Liz Hughes and the rest of the NAIDOC team. We look forward, and don't forget to tune in to True Colours. If you missed the first 2 episodes, it's on SBS On Demand. Otherwise, EP 3 is up tonight at 8:30 and EP 4 tomorrow night. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.